that in WWE, I bet it was 1987 with the Hart Foundation, where, and they were covering up the fact that Dynamite Kid was nearly paralyzed, and he literally, okay, so you have the British Bulldogs tag team champions. And I'm taking this for this benefit. I'm guessing most of you are going to remember this.
I started watching when John Cena was a rapper.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Like an comic.
Davey Boy has to carry Dynamite to the ring, piggyback, because Dynamite can't even walk at this point. Sets him up.
Drop the F-bomb, weren't you?
Yes, I was.
Family show.
For Schluggener walk. So they have the Hart Foundation as challengers, babyface champions, British Bulldogs, and then Jimmy Hart uses his megaphone, wax. First thing he does is he hits Dynamite Kid over the head with it in front of the referee, Danny Davis. So, and Danny sees it and doesn't do a thing, and then both the Hart Foundation members just beat the F out of poor Davey Boy, do their double finish. There's no tagging, there's no anything, it's so flagrant. Danny Davis 1, 2, 3, titles change hands, the audience is booing, and Jack Tunney was the kind of nominal figurehead at that point, and he said exactly what you said. That decision has to stand. I can't reverse it.
That's right.
But I can ban Danny Davis from now on, and that's what I'm doing. He's fired, and then he briefly became a wrestler.
But he took a different approach where he did his authority outside of the situation that happened, so it was more believable.
Yes.
And I think what happens now in wrestling is people don't show that the referee's decision is final.
Yeah.
You know, and another instance was, for example, like you know everybody sees the match where the referee takes the bump. You know, he gets knocked out, and whether it's intentional or unintentional. The best ones for me are always the unintentional ones, because it's like, oops, it was an accident. And then the ref's down, and then another ref comes out and counts the 3. But then at the moment that the other ref counted the 3, the other referee that took the fall wakes up and says, no, that's not a 3, I'm the official in this match. Now you have a little tiff between who's the authority, and it ultimately falls back on the original referee. Even though he was down, he was still the original referee assigned for the match, so his authority stands.
That'd be good to see.
They played that with that.
It's been years since I've seen
Ric
it.
Flair
Yeah, I haven't
and
seen it
Ricky
for a long time.
Steamboat.
Yeah.
There's a title change.
But then they gave it back.
No, they didn't actually.
Oh, they did?
But that was, okay, so it's 1989. Steamboat.
Woohoo! Mullets and Zubas.
The referee gets bumped. It's Tommy Young is the referee. Out comes Teddy Long, actually. And I think
Then he made it a tag team match.
he does it Steve-O does his crossbody lock, and I think Flair tripped over an unconscious Tommy Young, if I'm remembering this right. Pins him, out comes Teddy Long, 1, 2, 3. Tommy Young wakes up, and Ric Flair appeals to him and says, hey, that can't count because of you. And then Tommy Young goes over to Ricky Steamboat, and they both raise his hands, and the audience goes insane, like, oh, yeah. Because they thought they were going to do it the way you suggested, but Tommy Young was like, no, actually, I'm...
But I mean, that's the way I would have played it.
Of course,
but that was perfect, as Ric Flair's the heel, even though he lost the match, arguing to the referee, you're the official,
That dynamic is all I'm saying.
Yeah, and that's what's missing, and it actually makes the referee, I don't know about you guys, but like Rob was saying, with the referee being, one of the most key factors in a show, doing things like that really does put that, that missing spark in wrestling back into it.
It does.
Because what is a
It
match?
legitimizes it.
What is a match without a referee or the ring? I mean, the wrestlers are important, and I just think that those things are the most important part. That's just me, though. I mean, there's a lot of.
And I agree with it, and I think managers as well play a very important role. Going back to where we started our conversation, from manager to referee, back to manager. The manager also plays an important role. He gives enough to the match, and he doesn't overpower it where he becomes the match. Most of the time. Like Bobby Heenan, everybody gives Bobby Heenan great credit in the world. He was a genius before his time.
Right.
But if you ever noticed him when he was out there, he only did what he had to do at moments when he needed to do it, and he never overpowered the whole match. He wasn't constantly in the fan's face the whole match. He'd be in the corner doing his thing, watching, and then when he had his moment, he'd take it. And then after the match, whether he got in there and got thrown around or whatever, or cowered down and ran or whatever it is that he did, he got that moment at the end. But he never took too much away. Same with the referee. The referee doesn't take too much away from the match, but they add to it in the
I
moments
agree.
where they need to add to
Well,
it.
that's where Danny Davis did at times add to it, I mean.
He was one of the original first heel referees that
Yeah,
they did. Yeah, dangerous, yeah.
Dangerous Danny Davis. But, I mean, I don't know, I read about him. When I was talking about, the ref being important, I remember I was reffing one time and it was like 98 or something.
So that's why it's so important.
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, I was still really new to the business. Do you remember a guy named Black Dagger? He's a Chicago guy. It was, okay.
Who was the main stable that he wrestled for? I mean, because back in those days, you wrestled you got around, but you had one home group that you were always at.
Well, he was
it Windy City?
Original Steel Domain down there.
Okay, yeah.
Chicago. So he came up, and I remember him and Ricky Noga. I was refereeing their match, and
How drunk
long
are you
night.
right now? Wrestle
Oh,
us.
man.
Sounds
So
like a show.
The
Russell
So I'm refereeing their match,
Kate.
and Dagger's getting in my face, and he puts me in the corner and pushes me, and I push him back, and I'm like, "Don't you ever put your hands on the referee!" He's like, "Oh!" And he's this mysterious masked man, and he like cowers down, and he's like, "Okay," and he goes back to wrestling, and I just thought that was like a really cool moment. It's like I just didn't want him to, put his hands on me. It wasn't like I was trying to be a showman or anything.
No,
like
but
that.
it played up beautifully because, he fed off of your anger and authority.
Yeah.
And because, like you said, he was this mysterious guy, he cowered it back and said, oops, I don't want to, I don't want to. That's like, okay, for example, like when Spider Baby as a heel was wrestling Dirty Ernie, very dirty Ernie, very, very dirty Ernie. As a babyface.
Loud.
And let's say you're the referee and he's choking him on the ropes blatantly, and you're counting 1, 2, 3. I remember in the older days, the referee would say, "Hey, I ever catch you doing that one more time, I'm throwing this match out and you're disqualified."
Yeah.
And then the guy would be a little bit more
They would
careful.
actually literally get in between and block and
Yeah.
push the
pull
wrestler
the
back
guy off or
and
something.
tell him no more.
You don't see that anymore, and I mean, you see guys taking liberties in the ring, oh, I'm gonna choke, I've got a 4 count. If I was the referee and I've warned you once, I've warned you once, shame on you, to shame on me. There ain't gonna be a third time. If I was a referee and I seen that the third time, I'd be like, what, if you obviously ain't gonna listen to me, I'm throwing this match out. And then if the promoter comes up and says, I'm saying, hey, that's the way wrestling is. You have to have, order established.
Kind of a loss of art.
And also too, it kind of, when you look at it, guys, taking those liberties, it's laziness on their part. They don't think of creative ways to cheat without the referee seeing. When I would do a match with Spider and we were doing our tag match and he's cheating, he'd pop me in the headlock, turn the body and the ref's behind and then do those, cheap shots, things that you're not supposed to do, closed fist, boom.
Shame on you.
And the referee yells and you go, open
Open
hand.
hand, or even the blind tag or the false tag or whatever. I mean, everything that's going on, he's creatively finding a way to cheat where the referee's not seeing it. And nowadays you see everybody, choking them right in front of the ref. Like, Spider will do a choke on the guy in front of the referee. Referee will say, hey, they do the count, I'm warning you, and then Spider will put his shin over the guy's throat and go, what are you talking about? And he'll argue with the referee, but at the same time, he's still cheating. So he'll get that extra heat because the little kids are like, no, he's still doing it, And it's like, it's a way to really work. And it goes back to also with managers, when you have managers out there. You got a guy in an abdominal stretch, you're hooking them in, this and that, and the manager's back there, and the referee's in front, and you're bringing your arm back there, and the manager grabs it, pulling. You don't see that stuff anymore. You don't see that creative work between the wrestler, the referee, the manager. You don't see it. Everybody
I think because there's too many
creatively.
egos, they want to.
Yeah, everybody wants to be Stone Cold.
Yeah. That's why you don't see it.
But you know what I noticed, and I will say this because Ernie will tell you too, because every promotion that I write for, I bring it back to an old school era of
Yes.
wrestling.
Yes.
And if you ever watch, and you as a fan watching, even last night is a perfect example. All the little kids who are used to watching WWE with the attitude and every match ending in a DQ because nobody wants to put anybody over clean. Take notes of this. No. You know, we're doing.
Hey, I got t-shirts to sell, pal. Nobody wants to buy a loser's t-shirt.
But, you know, you see it, you know, these kids are watching what today's product is, but when we do that old school stuff and we bring that in, you see them just explode in the audience.
Yes.
It's coming back, and if it's done right, it can, everything has to go full circle. You know, and wrestling, you know, by the time the 90s came, it was here. Then you got into the 2000s, you're here, you're getting close to 2020, and you're gonna be full circle. Old school will come back in
Yes.
such a huge way because it's been such a gap in between. So all the old fans that remember it will come back out to see it again, to relive those glory days of what they watched, you know, years ago. And to the new fans, it's all brand new, they've never seen that before.
The kids last night, on this side of me, there's kids on both sides of me, but the three kids and then the three parents in back, they were talking, it's better wrestling than what they watch on WWE.
Yes.
And it was so
Yes.
neat to just have conversations with these people that have never gone to a live event. They can't afford WWE, they can afford $10. Kids are 5. It was a great show, but throughout the whole night, they were equating what they seen with WWE, but they're right there. You know, they'd walk in like, and Morbid Angel scared them, and the little one cried. And I know Richie didn't mean to. He's very good at what he does, and that made it better for the parents. It made it better for the older 2 kids. You know, they were protecting them from this big bad wrestler, and these kids like, oh, thank you. Are you gonna be here? I think it's May 14th.
Yeah.
And I go, I'll be here. Are you gonna be here? Oh yeah, can we sit with you? I go, you sure can. And it was so neat to see these kids make an experience out of it, and the parents were so proud.
But it was all old school.
That's
wrestling.
old school stuff. That's what I have appreciated. Last night I watched that over at another promotion that I was working at. That they did the way that it's been doing here for the past 10 years, and it was like, yeah, whatever. I love how you do. That was something that was AWA, that was WWE back in the day.
Back in the day.
Well,
Even
the old man owned it.
NWA was the same.
Talk
way,
about
yeah.
Battleground. I like Battleground. To be honest, they're one of my favorite shows to go see. And we were talking about RWA last night, the first one with Jim Career on his own. What did you like about Battleground? Because normally I find them very entertaining. I like the people they book there.
Mike has been bringing in new faces,
Right.
Chicago faces. And,
Like those- Those
it's
4 guys,
probably-
I wish I could figure out who they are. Those 4 guys that we seen a couple weeks.
There was
couple
4
months
star,
last night. Remember?
4-star heroes, I think.
4-star
I
heroes.
don't think I've ever heard of them.
Oh
there
my
was
God.
Yeah, there was,
They might
They are
be from
so-
the Rockford, Peoria.
They are so
Yeah,
talented.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah.
They are talented, but, so I didn't go last night, I went down to RWA, but I like what Mike does.
And they did some, one of my favorite, of course, Darren Corbin, which I want to do my finishing of wrestling against Darren.
We still got a couple more years in you.
But he worked against Froggy or Frogman or whatever it
Yeah.
was. And they did some stuff last night that was great. They got, of course, that Frog guy, he's always talking with the crowd, which is really good the way he does. But they both did a strength thing. Darren threw him over and they both bridged up. I mean, perfect timing. They both bridged up together.
Lucha.
And I mean, that's what it looked like.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, damn, that's cool.
Yeah.
I'd break my neck if I did that. Wait a minute. I'd break my neck.
You were at that show last night, right?
I wasn't.
You were more in attendance kind
Yes.
of thing. What was your take on how everything went from start to finish, the show?
What was it?
Because we talked about RWA pretty much for a good portion of the night. Let's get the take from you as a fan in the crowd.
I always feel that those shows are top notch. It was, it started off hot, and then, like, when my buddy Luther, he was in there, he was the second match. I think the crowd, you know, kind of sat down after that first match. They were hot, and they sat down for Luther, then he hurts himself, and it's like, okay, what the hell, what just happened? Then we move on. A lot of fresh faces last night, and I don't remember much of their names, but
Good crowd interaction.
it was, yeah, they worked the crowd a lot.
Did North Star Express wrestle?
They did not, no. But
My
yeah.
favorite team.
There was one guy, he was one of the guys from, I think, Chicago, I guess. He was really small, he looks like a 10-year-old, but he was out there wrestling as a big guy. He's like I can't remember what he called him.
He's actually out of Davenport, Iowa, and that's
Oh,
what he announced.
okay.
And yes, he did, yeah.
He worked the crowd
Oh
heavily.
my God.
But the crowd hated him, man. Because he really did look like a 10-year-old kid, and someone said, "Oh, don't hurt the kid," and he just flipped out on this guy.
Anything he tried to do, of course, he didn't have the size of strength to get the guy it worked.
It was pretty entertaining, and I think 7 matches was might have been, you know, a bit much for the fans to take in because it was just solid wrestling, bam, 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 bam.
You guys ran it straight through also.
Well, no, they had a little a
10
break.
minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, and then by the time the main event came around with Ryan Cruz and Venom, it's like you could tell they were trying to work really hard with the crowd. Something wasn't happening. I think the crowd might have been tired, or I don't know what it was. There's no fault to either of the boys.
Though they had a good match.
It was.
But it was, the crowd activity with it was,
Very minimal,
yeah.
and you get, you know,
Was it, I mean, you know, and I wasn't, obviously I wasn't there because I was at the other show, but I mean, I know a lot of times, you know, maybe the match is good, but they're not interacting with the crowd, or sometimes there's too much interaction with the crowd and not enough in the ring, and so, I mean, was it that was missing, or was it just that the crowd had just had enough of wrestling for the night and they were just
Or
I
did
think
it
it might have
keep the
been.
match before?
Or
Or
was the
maybe,
match-
or was
was
it
there
a
a
tornado?
Venom, usually he gets the crowd,
Yeah.
and they were asleep with Venom, and
I was
Venom
feeling
worked,
left out. yeah.
Venom worked the crowd
Do you
real
need a
hard.
hug?
No, I don't know.
Okay.
Thank you though.
Yeah.
But
Later,
the
though.
trouble is I, in my opinion, I think people are getting tired of the kind of character maybe that they're.
See, what I usually do when I'm putting like a card together is, you know, like last night we didn't run an intermission, but in my mind I pretended that there was an intermission and everything had to be built. This match is going to be good, then this match has to follow it and get a little bit better and better and better, keep raising. And always the match before the main event, the way I always had worked it is it's not really a gimmick match. It's just like in the old days, they would just take 2 guys and put them out there just to waste 5 minutes time,
Yeah.
10 minutes time.
Yeah.
And then, you know, just to keep the crowd, you know, interested in the wrestling, but, you know, getting them jacked up for what they're gonna see last. And I kind of place that match before intermission as the same thing.
I think their match, Venom and
Ernie's,
match.
Ernie's heading, where are you going?
It's a large prostate back in us.
That building out back with the quarter moon on it?
He figures if he starts walking now, by next week, he'll get to the venue.
All right.
But that's usually kind of how I've always built it, is the match right before intermission shouldn't have any real importance. It should just be a match. 2 guys going out there just doing a match, you know, because you don't, you know, like Carol said, and that kind of just sparked my interest when she said
Would you
that.
like more coffee in here?
Oh, yes, no, I'm a cup.
No?
I would need a new gimmick.
Yeah.
We say gimmick a lot.
Okay.
Thank you for
Do
asking.
you want more coffee? No? Okay.
Thank you, though.
You're welcome.
But
Today's
when
episode
she
is brought to you by
said
Hardee's.
Hardee's. Delicious
What's your
coffee.
crave? Wait, that's wrong.
Hey, have it your way. Or that
Yeah, that's the
Subway.
wrong one. Having
Oh,
a way is very
Eat it like you mean it.
Yes.
But,
And the Sonic, love Coca-Cola.
you know, when Carol
My
said
comic
that,
book, go and buy it. HeroicMultiverse.com. Okay, go ahead.
when Carol said that, you know, it was the match before the match that peaked it. You know, as a promoter, you always want to make sure that your main event is the main attraction of the evening. And
That's a good, how can you control that? Because I know what, as you as a writer, I really appreciate what you do
Thank you.
and what you think you're doing.
I don't know if that was a compliment.
Well, I'm not quite done at what other writers think they're doing, but I don't necessarily take what you're doing. It could be you or it could be another
But
promotion.
in essence, you are.
Well, of course, I gotta sit and I gotta take it, I gotta watch it, but maybe what you or someone else thinks is the crescendo didn't do it for me, or I thought something else was better.
Well, I mean, every fan is going to have a different opinion
Right.
of who their favorite is.
Well, is
and
that
what song.
frustrating for you?
No. Again, you gauge, your main event based on previous shows, how the crowd responds to the two guys, the feud that's going on, how intense is it. You gauge it off of that. As far as like,
Ernie's about to come back. Should we all just shut up? Like we were just talking about it the whole time.
Moment of silence.
Yes.
No, no,
and then there's Ernie. Oh, hey, welcome back.
Hey, Ernie.
Did you make it?
Everything came out okay.
All right, good deal. We cover everything here, everything.
Usually they just cover me up.
No, but I mean, when I gauge a card, I mean, even though you say, what you said about, it might not appeal to me. In essence, it does fall in line because I always get your feedback after the show and you come up and you're like, in that match before this match, it was in the right place, and you always tell me that every show. It's like that was in the right spot at the right time, and it was a perfect feed into the next. So in essence, you are buying what I'm selling you.
But the first match, this guy's match, was match of the night.
Right, but it set the pace for everybody.
It was.
And
It
like
did.
psychology-wise,
Yeah,
crispness in the ring, fan reaction. It was the be-all, end-all of matches.
it helped me teach those
It's the best for the
kids.
wrestlers too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It helped me
but
teach
let
the
me
kids
go into where we're
how
going
to
here.
boo and how to
Even though it was the match of the night, okay,
Mhm.
it still set the pace for
It did.
everybody else. And it set, not just set the pace for the guys in the back who are trying to outdo that, it set the pace for the audience. And the whole night, whether it was the first match, the middle match, the end match, they were hot for the action. And it all starts with the first match, and everybody just steps it up a notch. So,
It was a good night.
but putting the card together is a very difficult thing because you have to look at importance on an angle. You don't want to have two hot angles going back to back. You got to have like a buffer in between. That's in the adult industry. That's a term in the adult industry.
Well, see, that was the thing.
But you need to have that buffer.
Oh, buffer. That's a-
Like when we had on the
Fluffer too.
AWA, when Vern and his writers and his guys would go over is, when we did have an intermission, the match just before the intermission was a great match. So people were really excited to see the last 2 or 3 matches. And you're working that deal now too,
That's
which has
right.
been really good.
I always want the match, if we have an intermission, the match before intermission to be super hot so the fans are really jacked. And it's got to always end in some form of controversy. So it's like,
Yep.
It's like,
Talking.
everybody's talking about it during intermission and so on and so forth. And then the match right after intermission, you really got to get something super hot to get them back. 'Cause you got to remember, they're up here before intermission. Intermission happens, they come down. Then you need the next match to bring them back up after intermission. But then I usually do 3 matches after intermission because you don't want to have too much after that. So what I usually do is I'll have a hot match right after intermission, then an average match,
Well, we used
and then
to
build
have-
for the main.
We used to have that too, then it was the other thing, a lot of times if there was a problem or something happened in that match before intermission, we would have the promoter or Stanley Blackburn would show up and come into the ring before the match after intermission and talk about the last one and get it set up. This is going to be your next main event is.
Right, and it was a way to sell tickets during intermission.
But it was something that everybody during intermission, as you said, were sitting there thinking and bitching, complaining, madder than all. Well, now, the officials have made this so then you're really, of course, for the next show.
And actually, it's beautiful the way they did that back in those days because they would have something so hot and controversial right before intermission. Then like he said, the guy would come out, talk about it to the fans, talk about the rematch that's gonna happen. And what do you think people did during intermission? They went out and they bought the tickets for that next show. Now that's the problem with indie promotions, is because a lot of them don't actually make tickets. RWA last night, they made tickets.
That was
they
nice.
but they didn't make tickets for the next show. And a lot of promotions don't make tickets. And
That's
if
true, you would sell them then.
you would sell a lot of
Well-
tickets because you're getting people right on that emotional
Right.
high.
That's-
And it's like, oh man, I gotta see that guy get his ass kicked, so I'm gonna go and walk right up to that table and buy my ticket. And if it's only a $10 ticket, you're not really, you're not thinking about it. It's like Field of Dreams, you build it, they'll come. People will just fork over that money, It's
Well,
like,
see, that's like.
it'll only cost you $20.
A few years ago, I went with Kurt to a WWE show in Minneapolis. And when they announced that the next tickets are on sale and, at the last match, he was up to the front buying them, and he says there was lines of people buying them. And I was like, are you out of your mind? But,
but if indie promotions
Well,
started...
he is, but for other reasons.
Yeah, if indie promotions started making their tickets and then making their next show's tickets, and then started, doing that, doing something like that, I think that they would have a
and
good pre-sale.
especially the way Kurt has set up we've got home places to have matches.
Yes.
And that's good
that
for-
we're
for-
going to be
for
there.
Battleground too, because
They have.
they have a great following, they have a home, but if you
Well,
can, if you can already think about this, if you can already go into your next show with either half the gate already sold or the show already sold out, you'd be one of the first promotions to say, hey, we already sold out the show, and we have, and that's a month away or
Yep.
2 weeks away.
Yep.
You'd be one of the first indie promotions locally to this day and age that would be able to do that.
Yeah, prime time's probably pretty close to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Prime time is probably.
But they're knowing, they know how to capitalize
Yes.
on that aspect of wrestling. Whereas a lot of promoters, a lot of the stuff is just last
Well,
minute throw it
prime
together.
time's been around for a while, and that's the big thing that Dave has been helping on. We're taking the smaller independent promotions and trying to boost them. And I'll take at least a half a point on it, that I've been trying to help talk with these guys and get it through their head. Dave could take a full point on working with them to teach the owners of these
There you
groups
go.
that this is what you gotta do or it's not going to work. You're just gonna be,
You're just gonna be a group that gets together.
I appreciate the schedule, I appreciate, hey,
And I
it's
did
7
start that
minutes.
thing on time last night, because I know
Yes, I keep track.
I know you're picky about things starting on time.
I'm
7
sorry.
o'clock, actually 6:59, we had the guy in there.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I got a question, it's kinda like off topic, but you as a booker and you as a worker, your worker, what's the weirdest thing you find guys demand? They come into your promotion, maybe don't know you.
Fresh grapes, spider baby,
Yeah.
bastard.
Yeah.
It's weird, the teenage boy that it says feed them to me,
Yeah.
they're not buying that
Yeah.
and everything.
Yeah, but you said you work with people you don't know. I mean, has anyone walked in and just?
Quite honestly, last night there was about 4 to 6 guys I'd never even seen in my life.
Do they have demands when they walk
No,
in?
they were the most
No,
humble, professional
Yes,
people I've
yes.
ever,
A lot.
Justin Lakeview, what was his name? Last night in the tag match with the long hair.
Oh, with the camo pants?
No, he was in the tag match with Moses. The guy with the long hair, Justin
Justin
Lee.
is all I know.
Yeah, it was,
Sorry.
I think it was Justin Deason or something was his name. Most professional guy. I mean, he's been in the business a while, but one of the most professional guys. He's not one of those guys that hey, I got to make sure I get my manicure before the show, and I need fresh fruit laid out, and it has to be this kind of water set at this
And
temperature.
that's where I got the idea from some of the new guys. It's like they seem like they were
Some people
high
are.
maintenance.
No, some are. So there are some people that are like, hey man, what if I need to look this way at a show, and this is how I got to do my thing, and it's like, well, that's great. You can you can go.
Go up, yeah, or go to your car and do what you
You know, go, I don't need you, I don't need you to tell me how to do something I've been doing 20 years.
Well, that's like, I worked a lot with Roy, Honky Tonk Man.
Yeah.
And, he's, comes right on in, sits down, hi, how you guys doing? Let's
do it.
and he's always been great back in the dressing room, at least when I worked with him. I've heard so-called a few other promotions that he's been kind of a prima donna, I guess you would call it at it, but that's something that, again, it's the promoter, owner that doesn't have any idea what the hell he's doing.
Okay.
Those are
And
called,
Roy's gotta take
like money marks or whatever. The guys that start up a promotion, they have money and they spend money foolishly just to get the people that they've always wanted to meet in their life. Into the promotion.
That's it. That was what it
And
is,
you do get that from time to time, but I mean, for the most part, I would say, what I've experienced with Minnesota wrestling and promotions in Minnesota, most people have a good head on their shoulders. You're gonna have one or two that, I've worked for promoters who, they're also wrestling on the card. And they're always in the main event, and they're always the champ, and they always win,
Go figure, how's that happen?
And when I've always promoted and I've wrestled on a show, I've always been, get me on early, let me put my students over so I can get back and then get back to business, So you have those people who will have those egos, and it's all about them.
Well, see, that was just like I say, like with Honky Tonk. With Roy, we were hauling the ring home. My kid was driving the other truck with the ring behind it, had a flat tire. Roy got right underneath, started jacking up the damn trailer. What are you doing, dude? You don't have to do this. Well, I'm here with you guys.
Yeah.
And it's great to have guys that are still guys.
Now, in a wrestling match wise, I've been in the ring with guys, I'm sure all of you have, where guys are like, well, I have to get this spot and I have to do this and, I have to look this way.
That's not unreasonable though.
It's not unreasonable, but I mean, for example,
But how
As
many,
long as they're doing it for the audience and not because I look good.
right, but that's usually the case. Most
That is
people are
the
doing
case.
it because I want to look good.
they need to see this many spots from me.
I mean, how many matches have you guys been in where you've seen where two guys will go out there and they're on the same wavelength, but all they're thinking about is one spot to the next
Right.
spot to the next spot, and they forget that there's an audience there. And,
Yep.
how many times have you watched a match before and you see how the audience gauges it and you kind of adjust how you work?
I've been in matches where the audience forgets that you're there, and the guy's gotta get his spots in still, and it's like, come on, let's just go home.
Just take it.
Yeah,
home.
they lost
Like,
it.
just gotta
It's-
keep going. And
I've been in ones that it bugs me is, I hate to say it, that last one with Q. Q's supposed to have been working me over. And, dude, where in the hell are you?
You better be taking notes, Q, if you're watching.
And
You better be
you're supposed to
watching.
you're supposed to be on me. And if you're gonna slam me to the mat, you better slam my old ass to the mat, not lay me down. Cause I'm gonna grab your leg and I'm gonna trip you, or I'm gonna bite you, I'm gonna do something or other, which isn't supposed to be my character. But if I gotta take over and do that,
You're gonna do it, yeah.
them are the ones that really bug the hell out of me when you get the guys that are, you do what you want to do.